Oh my. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm so sorry about that slight false start there. We started on a generic stream button rather than on our channel. So welcome to the Online Wine Tasting Club. I'm Alex. This is Jamie, as you probably know.
There we are, and we have people.
We have people. Fantastic.
So,
hello.
For those who've been with us for a while, it wouldn't be the Online Wine Tasting Club without a small pitch. So, what we're going to do is we are going to have a deep dive into terroir. I'm going to say very at the beginning, it's not a geology lesson. It's a wine tasting.
No. If you are expecting the world's top experts on soil science and mineral content, probably look elsewhere. Absolutely. But we will certainly give you some delicious wines to try, won't we?
Absolutely. So we are terroir this evening. We're going to do it, slightly differently. What we're going to try and do is get two wines into the glass at the same time. So grab yourself a couple of glasses. We will go through with the Slido as we usually do. So we'll talk about wine one, we'll do that. And then we'll talk about wine two, do that. But don't down wine one. You can down wine one. You can do what you like. That's absolutely fine. But when we do that, we'll talk about the terroir, the factors affecting the wine, and what makes the two wines different. So we're going to do it in 3 flights. We're going to do our first flight, which is going to be 2 Sauvignon Blancs from different places in the world, and we'll talk about how climate affects the terroir.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, we can see there's lots of different things that affect the terroir, but some people claim it doesn't exist at all.
Absolutely. So the first flight will be a little bit more about climate. The second flight, we've got 2 Pinot Noirs that are literally in the same vineyard on different bits of soil. So we're going to see how the soil affects the terroir. And then finally, we're going to go to Argentina and one wine from Mendoza, one wine from a little bit further south in Patagonia. And we're going to see how terrain affects the wine, if it does at all. So without further ado, we should probably
let's get some wine into glass.
The first couple of wines in the glass.
Yeah, first 2 wines indeed. And good evening to everybody. So sorry about that slight challenge there earlier. As you say, it wouldn't be it. What we've spent the last 2 days at the London Wine Fair, where we actually bumped into a few of our members, which was so nice to see people around. Really, really lovely when we meet you all in real life, and we realise you're not all Russian bots or anything like that, because we're obviously being swamped by people. So that's naturally the way it would be. But I think this is a topic that I've been looking forward to for a good long time, because I think it encourages a few discussions, because particularly when you're in that old world category, you'll go to a French vineyard in Burgundy, and or any other region. Other regions are available, and you will go and they will show you these wines, and they'll say, this is their village level, this is our single vineyard site that's from this particular part of this village, this is one from just a really good vineyard, the Premier Cru one, and then this is our expensive one from the Grand Cru. And naturally, there's always a progression in quality. Almost always a progression in quality. There certainly should be, because the progression in price,
there absolutely
that's
is.
For sure. And yet, there are any number of things that winemaker could have done. Like the cheap wine, was that, machine harvested, chucked into a big vat and turned into, no real care put into it, no oak, no aging.
And
what exactly are
the fruit that was left over from the rest?
Leftover fruit that didn't go in. So when you then get down to that point, it's quite fun to explore these macro trends like we're doing with wines 1 and 2. But if you want to really explore the two things, you've almost got to find a winemaker who's made a decision. They have decided the winemaking is going to be the same, because otherwise you could do anything you like to it, couldn't you?
There's an interesting one, and it's not really terroir based. It's winemaking decision based. But there is a California wine called Mer de Soleil, and they do the same wine, exactly the same. One goes into a concrete vat, one goes into an oak barrel, but everything else is the same. Same plot, same grape, same this, and it's really cool to taste side by side.
Comrade.
This is why we are the.
This is supposed to be the serious.
This is why we're the number one serious wine tasting on the internet. Thank you very much. But anyway, so let's move the tasting notes on, so people can start tasting.
Let's do
tasting
that. Yeah, I think
wine.
so.
And this was an interesting one, because usually we go, we can pick some wines. We'll talk about the wines. We know the winemakers. We know this. And this one, we really had to do some research. We had to get the books out and go, it's back to GCSE. Sedimentary versus metamorphic versus igneous. Which rock type is this?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Whose rock is it anyway? Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, so first wine is Sauvignon Blanc, and it's from the Loire Valley, and this is made by John Delaney. And we've done a couple of wines. We've done his La Brossette, his hedgehog wine, and this is his Holy Snail. And when we talk about terroir and we talk about sense of place, I always go backwards into Sauvignon Blanc, because I think Sauvignon Blanc is one of the grapes that where you plant it, it really gives it a sense of place.
That's Loire. That's so. I'm sorry. I'm looking at it. I'm like, that's one. That's two. But that's definitely the Marlborough one.
Yes,
There's no mistaking these.
I poured it restaurant tasting, so closest to furthest away,
okay,
rather than reading.
I see. The old habits
the old sommelier.
Yeah.
But and you go around and go, you've got French Sauvignon Blanc versus New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc versus Chilean Sauvignon Blanc versus California versus wherever you go. And they all have their vastly different telltale signs of what they're going to be, which is absolutely...
Brilliant.
It's gone already. We're 2 minutes in and it's gone.
No, I can't read that.
So
Cyrillic's not good enough.
So yeah, but both these wines they're light styles, they're fresh, they're aromatic.
We're on wines 1 and 2.
So we've got wine 1 and wine 2 in the glass. We're talking through wine 1 at the moment, but we're going to do them as 3 mini flights.
Yeah,
to go through. So we'll do wine 1, then wine 2, then come back and do a comparison. And it's very important. Get your notes and your comparison chat in there, because me and him going, that was a bit grassy, that was a bit gooseberry, is going to be very boring. So make sure you get involved. And I think there's also the point when we do the 2 different wines, which wine is for which occasion. This isn't about one being better than the other.
No,
you might prefer.
You might have one favourite,
but before I dive in and go, I think I'm going to go. The Loire Valley is going to be much more for having with food, and the New Zealand one's going to be much more. I just want to have a glass.
It's
of it.
interesting,
but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure whether I'm going to come to that conclusion, but yeah, it's a fascinating thing. When you're talking about a wine like this, we get the notes about how the wine was made, and if I were reading through this, upon arrival at the winery, the grapes were gently pressed. Fermentation took place in temperature-controlled stainless steel tanks at 16 degrees to retain the bright aromatics. Following fermentation, the wine was matured in its fine lees for a brief period to add texture before it was fine filtered and bottled early in spring. That's not a million miles different from the technique that you would use for a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. It's stainless steel, it's fresh, it's not oak, it's not that kind of thing. Really interesting. So again, as we talked about the differences between the winemaking style and the influence of the land and the climate and all of these other wonderful things that hopefully you've got your book. We put a bit of effort into making that, so I hope you appreciate it.
Wow, he's looking for a compliment. Please say, Alex, your book is fantastic. Well done.
You made most of it.
You're the one fishing for compliments here.
Okay. But, I mean, as we look through, you do get some of those classic Sauvignon characteristics coming through, but it's just it's like the dial's been turned down to about kind of 4-5.
See, and I think when we move to the next tasting, I don't think the tasting notes are going to be vastly different. I think the size of the words might be different, but I think the content is going to be very similar, because Sauvignon has that grassy, grapefruit, gooseberry, green kind of style, but depending where it comes from is which part of that comes out. And you've got the Loire Valley, which is generally, it's old world, it's a little bit cooler, grey skies this, and then you've got New Zealand, and that top of New Zealand, Marlborough, you go to Nelson, just to the west, it's got some of the most sunshine hour days on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's obviously that hits you with those intense flavors, and we'll do a little bit of more of a dig into what exactly makes that happen, but not too much, because it's obviously it's all sorts of things, the climate. We talked about these sunny days, but I mean, we talk about the Loire being a cooler place. It's not been that cool in the last few years, so but it does have the cooling influence of the river, of course. Marlborough has its own cooling.
It's got the breezes coming from the ocean, absolutely. And, hot and cool in wine doesn't have to be dramatic as people think it is. You going on holiday, it's kind of 18 degrees and 40 degrees. That's a massive jump. But warm and cool climates in winemaking, a lot of winemaking in the New World, it's done in the cooler regions of the hot places.
Yeah.
And in the Old World, it's done in the warmer regions of the cold places.
Yeah.
So
you even get a bit of that within sub-regions like, Bordeaux. But,
absolutely. And blind tasting is becoming harder and harder. And
well,
I'll turn around and go,
yeah.
this is either for Old World warm or New World cool. And there's this kind of moderation in the middle.
I think you've raised a very interesting point. So, as we've mentioned,
I
we were at the London Wine Fair. Now, one of the things that they did was everyone loves to rehash old ideas, and they revisited yet again the whole Judgment of Paris, but they called it, you won't believe this, the Judgment of London, because they did it in London. I see what they did there. But they decided to explore this whole, is it Old World, is it New World, is it better? What kind of blurs these lines? And when the final scores came in, then you had a Master of Wine, Sarah Abbott, and a Master Sommelier, Ronan Sayburn, picked the wines. Pairs went up against each other, all sorts of different characters. Do you know what the difference in scoring was between Old World and New World?
Am I guessing, or can I? Probably about 0.65%.
That's a remarkably amazing guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Bugger all, basically.
Yeah.
And yes, actually, the wine that came out on top was a New World wine.
It was the Pegasus Bay Riesling.
Pegasus Bay Riesling.
See,
amazing,
top wine.
So
top tip.
Not
top
even
wine.
the California that won out in the old Judgment. But Europe won overall. But all of these were by such fine margins.
It was, they had a panel of, 12, 15 judges that did it.
Yeah.
Like one vote either way would have changed it.
I'll move the tasting notes on to wine number 2 now, because obviously we are tasting both of them. And this is Kim Crawford. Sorry to interrupt you there. Exactly. These lines are becoming blurred, and
I'll tell you what would be
techniques are better.
I'll tell you what would be really interesting. If they redid it again tomorrow with the same wines, I think there could be a different result. I really do.
Yeah.
It's we do a tasting called Vino versus Vino, which is kind of a bit like that kind of thing. It's a blind tasting, 2 wines side by side, vote for your favorite kind of thing, and you do the same taste. We did it 2 times in a week, and a guy came to both of them, and 4 out of the 5 wines he swapped which one was his favorite between the 2 nights. So it just showcases it's it's enjoying what you love.
So we've got some really interesting points and questions, and one of the most dominant differences between these wines is the T word, thiols. Thiols are a group of chemicals, and they express themselves from the grapes. They're not sort of directly in the grapes, but they come out in the final process after the fermentation's done its job. But you can pick different yeasts that are selected to really magnify those and develop those. Say if that one's developed that much more and we're looking for that much more, and that's exactly what the New Zealand people did. But the other message we've got is talking about acidity, and the whole question of the acidity of the wines. And while we're thinking that these are, this is an area that's, I think the Loire must have had a lot more heat in this particular vintage, because the acidity on the Marlborough is about 8 grams a litre, and the Loire is about 5.5. So that's a significant difference. But what does that do to the other things? Does it change your perception of the flavours? We know that acidity in food changes your perception of flavours, doesn't it?
And acidity in wine. So if you've got lower acidity, the wine will feel rounder on the palate. It'll feel weightier, and those softer fruits will come out. And it's almost, if we take an apple, it's the difference between a Cox's apple and a Granny Smith apple. You've got apple flavours, but you've got this soft, round, mellow, soft fruit in the Loire. And then you've got these, and you look, it's gooseberry is, and the apple is a little bit smaller. It's still there, but it is that acidity, and it comes with muscle memory of a lot of wine. We don't pick this up generally, actually, with the geeks we've got on here, people pick this up and go, that tastes like Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, because that's how it is. But generally, when you pick up a wine, you say, what does this wine taste like? You turn around and say, it tastes like things that we know. It tastes like good, like the tasting notes. And we associate gooseberry and we associate lime with being that high acid, that zippy, that, back of your mouth here. So when you get a high acid wine, those flavors become more prominent, because that's how you remember them in the real world of eating fruits and foods.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And the order you take those wines in is really going to impact on how you affect the next one that you try. If you try them the other way around, you're going to get a very different effect. So,
Sophia, that is sometimes a horrible, horrible thing when we're doing the online wine tasting club, because I'm like, do we need to do it in order of lightest to heaviest? Do we need to do it in order of price point? But if we put a really expensive light wine at the end and it comes after something heavy, is it
you're
just going to be lost?
Yeah.
Or do we have to move them around because we're trying to tell a story as we go through the tasting? So it's
this is an excellent question. So the time you pick them you can't underestimate the impact on that. Of course, the earlier you pick it, the higher the acidity will be, but also the cooler the grapes are when you pick them. And one of the big things that certainly the Kiwis are used to doing is they can rip through the vineyard in the middle of the night with their machine
with
harvesters.
their big machines with their lights on and go.
Yeah. And that also allows you a bit of flexibility in when you pick them. So you can pick at different stages of ripeness. And you're starting to see this in more wines now. But I think this was probably one of the earliest places where people really did start going, let's pick at different stages of ripeness as well as different stages of kind of, waiting for them to get ripe. Let's have some with the slightly greener flavors, some and fresher acidity, some with a richer, fuller flavor.
We're seeing that more and more worldwide as well. And it comes back to, we turn around and go, this is a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. It's a single grape, but it's still a blended wine, because they take some stuff in early so they can keep that acidity. They take some stuff in medium, wherever. They take some stuff in late if they want to have those flavors. And sometimes it's not only about the style. And, we talked to a load of winemakers at London Wine Fair. It's about what you can fit in your press and what you can process. So you need to get your grapes in, press them, get them going.
There certainly are some practical aspects, that's for sure.
It's not always kind of like magical and as perfect as everything can be. Sometimes it's kind of time pressures and space pressures. You have to make decisions in the vineyard as what you're going to do.
No, I'm really interested to hear about this. We've just been in Marlborough, learnt some slightly disappointing facts about winemaking laws that the mass producers of Sauvignon Blancs use. I pop those in the chat. Like, let us know what your thoughts are. That's really interesting to hear. And I think this is another point. It's like you say, it's starting to go around the world. I was listening to a podcast the other day of a Bacchus producer that was doing that in England, and of course, Bacchus is stylistically quite similar to Sauvignon Blanc. Is it chemically the same as Sauvignon Blanc? Absolutely not. It's got more Riesling heritage, but it doesn't have thiols. It has more esters. Esters are something that really do come from the yeast themselves. So they're either there or they aren't, kind of thing. So it's just a factor of the genetic makeup of the yeast. But
and I think that's the thing. I'm going to go back to mass produced. Okay, so there's mass produced versus large production, and sometimes we say mass produced and it gets a bad name because it's just whatever we get. New Zealand Sauvignon, they machine harvest because it's integral to how their final wine tastes. If they went out and handpicked, they wouldn't get it into the winery quick enough, and you wouldn't get this style that's coming out. So machine harvesting at night is key to getting this style.
Well, I think also the machine harvesting is a little bit more violent as well. So the way it works, for anyone who hasn't seen it, you've got this kind of like, you've got two rows of these plastic vibrators, as it were, which you go down, the tractor straddles the row of vines, and you've got these little sort of caterpillar belts, which sort of pick up the grapes as these things vibrate the vine, wobble it from side to side quite aggressively. The grapes fall off, and those drop down to the ground, and it then brings them up to the top, puts them into the hopper. It'll often destem them and sort them and get rid of any junk as well.
Barry is uncovering the wine world.
Yeah. Now, I absolutely. But as it does that, you get a lot more. You starting to crush those grapes in an earlier stage. You're almost kind of getting that maceration going on between the juice and the skins, and you're drawing more stuff out of the skins. So, really, really quite interesting. So yes, chaptalization, adding sugar before you ferment it to allow them to achieve full grape ripeness where there perhaps wasn't any. Yeah, when I found this out about English wine, it was only second to my disappointment at hearing that they chucked chalk into the wine to try to get rid of some of the acidity. It's not ideal, but ultimately these guys are farmers and they've got to make something out of the product they make. But is it going to make that really high quality product?
It's that balance between commodity and quality, and if the farmers have to do it, and that enables the New Zealand brand to get in the market. And I think it's I'm going to go Australian Shiraz. Yeah, Australian Shiraz. There's commodity and there's quality.
Mm-hmm.
Argentinian Malbec, exactly the same. There's some very cheap and cheap, and there's a point if you're going to be drinking the 5-6 quid bottles of wine off the shelf. The wines are going to be like that because they've got to be made to a recipe. They can't afford to lose any grapes. They've got to do everything they can do.
This is true. Now, I didn't think this slide through. I'm going to have to rethink how I do these. But let's look at them side by side in comparison so we can talk about the effect of these different parts of the terroir. So the soil in the Loire is very different. It's very varied. Now, this is a Val de Loire IGP wine.
Yeah.
So that means it's coming from all sorts of different parts of the Loire. So it's very hard to put an exact soil type on it. They tend to say here that it's predominantly clay and chalk. So silex, as the French would call it. Now, that's a very, very different situation to your alluvial sand and gravel that you get from these kind of over in Marlborough.
These old riverbeds.
Old riverbeds and all deposited stones. We've got that kind of at the bottom of my garden because we're right at the bottom of the valley in Berkhamsted. Very much like Marlborough. Perhaps I should plant some Sauvignon.
And get a machine to harvest it.
It won't take long in my garden. The oceanic influence you get a lot more in the Loire, of course, the closer you go to the Atlantic. And the more you move inland, the more it's defined by that continental side and, of course, the body of water, the river itself.
And that's why you find a very different style when you go through the Loire Valley if you're in Nantes and that kind of area as to when you get all the way down to Sancerre.
Quite right. But in terms of the sort of the history, of course, I mean, they don't necessarily have any really strict rules like in the same way. They've definitely got rules, but there's nothing really, really dominating that I'm aware of, at least.
For the Loire?
Yeah.
So, sub-region, if you want to be a sub-region, if you're Chinon, you have to grow this. If you're Saumur, you have to grow this. But if you're IGP Loire, you've got the picks of lots of different, whether it's Chenin, whether it's Sauvignon, whether it's Pinot Noir, whether it's Cabernet. So if you're that, you've got the best of whichever world you want.
You can pick and choose.
Loire General, you've got a lot of fun things you can do. Once you go into the more, and with anything, the sub AOPs, the smaller areas, the villages, the cru, the whatever, that's where it becomes more there. But if you're IGP, you can kind of do what you want.
You can indeed. Now, and I think that's really nice. And when you look at the terrain of it, it's all obviously it covers a vast distance, the Loire River, but it's all these gentle little river slopes that go left and right and then turn it between south facing and west facing and north facing and those define little microclimates. But as we're looking at big region versus big region here, we're looking at the macroclimates a lot more and the bigger influences on it.
Yeah.
And that's certainly what you're saying.
There's always, wherever you go, you can say this is it. But there's one guy around the corner who does it on the other slope, and he does this and does. And I'm like, yes,
quite right.
There's always that one person. But I also think when we talk about the tradition of it is old world wineries. A lot of them, and I'm not saying once again, not all of them, but a lot of them they do the way their parents did, and their parents did, and their parents did, and that's just how they've always made wine.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, it's a new industry commercially. It's really
Absolutely.
the 1970s, maybe it's even late as the 1990s when it became truly commercial, coming out of New Zealand. So it's always been there with new tech and new this and new that. They've started with machine harvesting, and I think there's I'm not saying there's not tradition, because there's a style and there's tradition in every winemaking place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's more kind of cutting edge.
Mhm.
Let's try something different, to get ahead of the game, because
Yeah,
Marlborough's
well,
popular and people need to do something
the
a bit
old
different.
world can rely on tradition. The new world has to rely on a bit more science. Now, of course, those things are merging because there's more tradition associated with the old world, the new world places, such as, how long has Cloudy Bay been a sort of a benchmark wine?
Kim Crawford, I
Like,
think, is a prime example
she's
of.
absolutely fantastic. She was winery of the year 2016. So,
Well,
so the science has not passed the French by. They haven't all just sat there going, "No, this is not for me." They have learned. If you don't think they've noticed the success of Sauvignon in New Zealand, then that's not true. I think the selected yeast thing, that's a massive part of it, and a lot of Bacchus producers in the UK as well have now got almost like a recipe of yeasts that they use at different grades of ripeness of the grape. But yeah, the key factors is that this cool temperature. They are protected by they're sheltered by the mountains from the full blast of the Pacific, but they still have that nice cooling influence. But more than 2,400 hours a year of sunshine and not much rain. That's going to impact the wine. You just think what that would do to the plants in your garden. I mean,
Absolutely.
if it stopped raining, it'd be a great thing in our garden. But yeah, so that's the key thing. So I'll turn that slide off now.
Should we go back to
Let's have the tasting notes
Oh,
again.
look at that. We're on the same thing there.
So it's more ripe fruits, isn't it? There, interesting.
Yeah, so passion fruit, lots of gooseberry, and
Tinned peaches. I like that.
we've got that sourness from the acidity. It's good stuff. Good stuff. The other exciting points.
It's going well with the sea bass.
We need to do
That's
another
a good combination. Yeah.
We need to do another cook along, don't we?
Drink wine 2 all day. I have to admit, I'm actually really liking wine 2. It's really good.
I like that, and I'm not always. I don't like the overly punchy New Zealand Sauvignon.
No.
This is, without a question of doubt, New Zealand Marlborough Sauvignon.
But you've started to hear about some of those techniques which make the difference between the really well-made, well-crafted ones from a great organizer and someone who has a contract with the supermarket
Good to go.
and
Boom.
has to make it
taste like this.
Yeah, at this price. And if you don't do it, I'm very jealous of Daria's raclette. That sounds delicious. So yeah, 2 very different wines. I'm not sure. I think you could make it just as good an argument that is a foodie wine, though. Going back to your earlier point,
it is.
It's just for different food, isn't it?
Once again,
there's no rules.
You know what you know who I want to quote on these two. I want to quote Carl Lamborn.
Oh
from
yeah,
Takara, who came to us and said, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Which I
truly
believe.
I have actually I have heard it someone else's quote before him, but he was I'd never heard it
to
before.
Me.
And
so, I'm sure it may well not have been his, but
no,
I liked it.
It's an excellent quote. It's an excellent quote. And for me, that one just drops away slightly in comparison. And maybe it's because if you were just having it on its own, it was a perfectly.
If you're drinking that, you wouldn't notice that one. And the same way around. If you hadn't had that one first, you'd
done. At the London Wine Fair on Monday, there was a New Zealand pop-up, and yes, like Kathy, we all got to try all these different ones. We tried a 1999 Jackson Estate Sauvignon Blanc,
which was really cool.
It was
really
very
cool to have the opportunity to try things like that.
And it was aged under cork, natural cork, which was interesting because we had a chance to side-by-side compare it to some that had gone under screw cap versus the ones that had aged under cork. And the screw cap ones held up a lot better. It wasn't that the cork one, the 99, was bad.
It had more developmental characteristics.
It had lost all of those aromatics.
You would have never blind tasted it as a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. It was much more almost like an Australian Semillon or an aged white Bordeaux in style. But it was cool.
But it was a really, really cool experience to get to taste that. And that also shows you that perhaps like necessarily the best tasting wine isn't necessarily the coolest one to have. But in terms of good tasting wine, I'm just delighted that this has once again restored my faith in Sauvignon, which was drooping a little bit after a while. Yeah.
So should we move the taste notes on and move
on? Let's have some Pinot
Noir.
Now this is a treat. This one. Do we? We need to tell the story better this because the Alexander vineyard. We worked with Alexander's beforehand, and the producers. Oh, let me get rid of that. You know, this is a wine which normally retails for a lot of
it's
money
insane.
because it's Oregon Pinot Noir.
So it had never been in the UK before,
Yeah.
and it's now here. And the person who came over goes, "Oh, I've got this. I've got a bit of a deal for you if you want
Yeah.
it." So I tell you something, I'm like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
This retails in the States. Both of these retail at about $75. I'm not going to tell you how much it is yet because you get to see it at the end. But
No.
I will tell you, it's not $75.
It's not $75. Yeah.
But I don't know. For those of you who have been with us for a while, we did a standalone tasting with Ravana, which are the parent company of Alexander, and they've got they've got a place in Napa Valley. They've got the Ravana Estate in Napa Valley. They've got Alexander App in Oregon, and then they've got Corazon del Sol in Mendoza.
Mendoza, yeah. So we could have done one there, Mendozas as well, but we aren't. But yeah.
So the guy who owns it is a heart surgeon from Texas, and just decided he wanted to get into wine. But really, really good winemakers, really good stuff they make. Their Oregon Pinot Gris is magic. They do some. This is obviously, as you see from the tasting notes, their East Block and their West Block Pinot. They do single vineyard stuff. That's, the single vineyard stuff. We've got a couple of bottles hanging around that's going to get on the website, and that's going to be 80, 90 quid for the single vineyard stuff. But it's absolutely delicious.
We've got the fact that we can put in 2 bottles of wine, which normally sell for $75 in the US. These, how it goes up again, like it does with Burgundy, going to the single vineyard blocks, and I think he felt that compared to his other vintages, they perhaps weren't quite as good. And
I would say,
but the problem is, I think he's wrong. I think, but what it does still do is it allows you to show them side by side. And now, what is really, really nice about this? We've got the taste notes up. I'm going to bring the slides up again, just for a second, because
so you can hide us.
Yeah, I can hide us. I've got rid of a lot of the topics here because there's not much difference. Now, we say there's more ocean influence because it's slightly to the west, but that's maybe, half a mile to the west versus the fact that it is...
That's like saying London's got more ocean influence than Oxford. Like, it really is, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, indeed. And there's maybe 100, 150 meters feet difference in altitude. But the primary difference between these 2 wines is the soil that they come from. And that is because he has made a very, very explicit choice. So it goes back to that early thing. What about the differences in winemaking? So I'm going to bring these up here. Now, for starters, we have some incredibly, incredibly good clones of Pinot Noir here. Like, super premium. They have the same clone of grape that's used in La Tâche.
Did you not learn your tech sheet? You're going to read your tech sheet?
I'm going to read it because I don't want to make any mistakes. But, okay, so we talk about is one hand-picked and one machine-picked? Is one really sorted and the other not really sorted?
Is one going oak?
One going oak, one not going oak. All right, so everything on the left is absolutely the same, and the alcohol is identical at 13.2. I like that precision. That's good. Then 35% new French oak, 35% new French oak, 21% one-time filled French oak, 20% one-time filled. So there's 1% difference there. I mean, I think we need to pick them up on this. 44% neutral French oak and 45% neutral French oak, barrel-aged for basically within a few days of each other. So, and yeah, the release price of $75. No difference really in practical terms. Not that massive.
So, yeah.
Here's expensive expensive new barrels,
identical processing, identical oak, identical price point.
Yeah, just the soil. The soil.
So where is the difference in the soil? So you've got.
Wow.
So what do we got? So we got the East Block. One day I'll remember which one's which. Like I've done it. So we got the West Block is first, isn't it? West Block is first. I always think it should be East and West. So we've got the West Block, and that is mainly sedimentary soils. So what you have with this is you've got good drainage, but it doesn't hold a lot of water. So the water disappears. With volcanic soil and the clay, you have more water retention. That's probably your two biggest points.
It's naughty. It is naughty. Yeah, I mean, just unbelievable, isn't it? So Corazon del Son is very close to El Pasión. That's really cool. I mean, we definitely got to go to the Uco Valley. If you have forgotten to take it out of the fridge, pop your hands around the glass, cup it, give it a good swirl around, get a bit of heat into it. There's only 50, 100 ml. It will warm up pretty quickly, even on a cold day such as this.
I just want to go very quickly. Look how many tasting notes are in that thing. Look,
Let's bring that up. Okay.
So we did a tasting with Dylan, who's the export manager, vice president, sales something. He came over from New York and he did a live tasting with us, which was really kind of cool. But I just think this is. I have a mini obsession with Oregon Pinot Noir because I think it takes New World know-how and that Old World nuance into Pinot Noir. And I truly, truly believe that at the right price point, Oregonian Pinot Noir is the best in the world. California, sometimes a little bit richer, riper, really punchy, and there's a good day for that. Sometimes Burgundy is a little bit tannic and dry and too dusty. Yeah. I like fruit in my wine. I'm very much a New World person. But this just showcases everything. 2020, a couple of years on it, and you see with those, we're starting to get some of those little tertiary flavours in there. And
well, I'm
chili jam.
I might well be finding myself next month somewhere near Santa Barbara to go and challenge the Oregon ones, because I do think the Santa Rita Hills down near Santa Barbara County,
like Domaine de la Côte.
And
not at this price, mate.
Not at this price. No, they are like the ones that come from Santa Rita Hills. I think probably largely because their proximity to Los Angeles and their fame in the film Sideways. The price of land has gone absolutely through the thing. Now this is very interesting. Yeah. So I would have always said Paso Robles, but I've been listening to a few. I listened to Jason Haas of what the hell's his wine called? Tablas Creek.
Tablas.
And he
Tablas Robles.
Corrected Chris Scott, who for once was pronouncing it right and saying Paso Robles. And he goes, no. If we were talking in Spanish, we would say El Paso Robles, but actually, everyone calls it Paso Robles in American English, and he's a person who clearly understands the difference. So I think that I'm going to go with Jason on this one. But
Mark Rothwell is also not a bot. That's what a bot would say.
That's exactly what your chat GPT, aren't you? Yeah.
This is how we got to get our numbers
Shall
up.
I move the tasting notes onto the other one?
Let's move the tasting notes
because otherwise everyone's going to drink it because they're so good.
But what is great about this is, as you saw from the image that Alex put up, it is literally the same vineyard, and it's just one side. You've got the northwest corner and the southeast corner, but they just kind of roll around. There's like a barn in the middle that you can stand at, and you look one way and see it. When it says it's sheltered, you've kind of got this line of trees that kind of shelter the east block, and that's why you don't get so much wind coming through it. It's less so to be the proximity to the ocean, but more it's shelter because of that. It's a little bit higher up, so you've got a little bit more of a diurnal shift, so it'll get a little bit temperature difference in the evening. But there's not a lot of things to say that are different apart from the soil. And I just think
which is crazy, isn't it?
If there was that one terroir word and that sense of place, and it was this is, I think, the epitome of showing how it's really important when people talk about vineyards and vineyard site and location. It's not about getting it right or wrong. It's about what you want your wine to end up like.
I think that's it. Terroir is expressing the differences.
I'm guessing we might have a split of, everyone might like one, but I think there'll be a split of preference But to be fair, I wouldn't be
Oh.
upset whichever one was given
Have
to
we
me.
got the wrong notes, the wrong ones on Slido? That's what's happening.
Have I got the wrong way around?
Sorry, guys. So sorry. It's wine 4 and wine 3. That's the main thing. But yes, we have a question about why one of them is vegan and one isn't. That might just be whether we've remembered to copy and paste it or not. Do you want to grab the bottles and I'll check that?
No, they're both vegan.
They're done.
They're both
vegan. They're both vegan. So that's all good. Because yes, but there are any number. I say the winemaking is identical. Of course, it might not be. He doesn't say whether he uses native yeast ferment, and now that I think native yeast ferment is, I think, a really interesting part of the concept of terroir, because what ferments the grapes, there's nothing to say you can't use selected yeast very carefully to make sure you're getting the same thing, and it's still representing its ground. But a different approach to terroir is say, okay, we're only going to let the grapes ferment with the yeast that exist in the vineyard, because each vineyard will have different yeast. That's where they came from. We selected them. We say it's got a Latache grape or a Pommard grape. I'm sorry, a Latache clone or a Pommard clone. It's the same for the yeast. People would go and
more
try
vanilla
to
in wine
that.
4. It's that 1% barreling difference.
It's the 1% barreling
1%.
difference. Yeah. Oh my goodness, too many notes. This is great. Any whole bunch. It doesn't mention it. But it is triple hand sorted, which is very exciting. Presumably,
I wouldn't
at least twice in the vineyard and once in the winery.
And I think if they're making that much effort, there'll be a whole bunch in there. It's not going to be a complete whole bunch. It's not enough stemminess, but
I'm not getting it, but so I suspect these are at least a large portion wild ferment.
Oh my word, I didn't change a note in there. Sorry.
They're both 13.2% ABV.
I need to proofread things more. I lied to you. So they are both 13.2%. So the alcohol is identical.
Sorry about that.
Joanna, shout at me.
Yep. So what is exactly going on underneath the soil
I thought
to make
my tasting notes that
these wines taste quite as different as those two do? Do you know what? It's a really, really interesting question, and I suspect we've all got different kind of things. And yes, on that yeast thing, you will, if you're in the winery, there will be some Saccharomyces, which is the classic wine yeast, which will be the one which dominates at the end. As the alcohol level rises, it starts to overpower some of the natural yeast, which can't really get to the higher alcohol levels. But you want it to ferment dry, which means getting rid of all that sugar, turning it into alcohol. So you need a yeast that can survive at the alcohol things. In Napa, I was hearing a very interesting fact from a couple of winemakers that they're pretty much dominant strategy, because they are dealing with such high We're back. This is the computer blue screen of death, which I haven't seen for a while.
By the way,
Sorry about that.
I love everyone at home who WhatsApps me to tell me
Yeah,
that
thank you.
you're frozen, you're gone.
Yeah,
Yes,
when the screen goes black, you're like,
the computer did a force reset.
I've got to make sure he patches this. I no idea what's going on with this thing. There's a scene in the South Park movie where it says, "Get me Bill Gates."
Yeah, to be fair, you know, we abandoned you with some very good wines to drink. We didn't abandon you with empty glasses. So I thought it was a nice pour, so you could consider the wines.
Exactly, without our influence. You talk about wine. I'm going to get this up. We were talking about biome and like what's going on under the soil to make them taste differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, it's the hundreds and hundreds of different things that are in there. You know, we talk about minerality, and you're not allowed to talk about minerality anymore because people go, "Ooh, the vines don't actually suck up minerals and get them into grape." We know there's not piece of chalk, but they also don't suck up bits of cherry and strawberry to give you those flavors. But you've got all this, you know, microbiology going on under the surface that adds to the water content. It takes away different minerals and different things in the soil. And what's really interesting is this biome under the soil communicates with each other. It's really interesting. A few years ago I had a dinner with a winemaker called Sashi Morn who makes some stuff in California, makes some stuff up in Oregon, and he was telling me the story about this vineyard that he'd planted, and there was a couple of different clones in there, but parts of the vineyard had enough water.
Yep.
Parts of the vineyard were suffering, and the parts of the vineyard that had enough water or more water than they needed, they would have generally, if they'd been by themselves, they would have taken it all up.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They took up less water, which allowed the stuff further up the hill that was in trouble to dig deeper and get water rather than nicking it all. It was... So I'm not saying they're having a chat with each other.
Well, but there are chemical messages that pass between
There's messaging going through between...
Yeah. And when people say it's not literally sucking up the chalk, of course it's not literally sucking up an igneous rock or calcium carbonate, but when you get the water coming in, you get these solutions of some of the dissolvable ionic substances go in, and that will give you your magnesium, and that will give you your potassium, and they will get attracted to to the roots and then drawn out. Only if you've got the clay that's drawing over the other side of it, the carbonate bit.
It's a chemical makeup.
Yeah. And it's an equilibrium. Like so many things, it's about balance.
But you can make, you get sweets in a shop, yeah?
Yeah.
You can get an apple flavored sweet with it have never gone anywhere near an apple, yes? Because the chemicals that give that flavor. And this is when we talk about, it tastes like strawberry or it tastes like tobacco. It tastes like...
No, it's not a literal
No one's been having a cigarette as they walk through no one's been throwing their butts on the floor.
But maybe if there's more calcium in there, and your roots are drawing up all the positively charged ions, maybe there is more calcium in it. Yeah. And we certainly know that it has a direct
flavour
result.
Profiles, it's the chemical build-up of those flavour profiles rather than actually eating a bit of rock.
Yeah, exactly. Memories of school chemistry, indeed.
Can we get a Bunsen burner out?
We should get a Bunsen burner and some goggles. The fascinating thing, I think, is just that you can look at the end result. The end result's what's important. If you have an alkaline soil, which is chalk and things like that, the chalk's what you add to your acidic wine to try to deacidify it. Basically, what it does is it pumps out a bit of carbon dioxide, not too much to worry about from the environmental point of view, and it makes the salt in the solution, and it takes away the acidity. Those hydrogen ions go away. So it's a less acid wine, which is critical if your grapes have not got ripe, because they keep the acidity to stop the birds eating them before they're ripe. And so that's what the acidity is there for. But yeah, those things, absolutely, you get the effect from the soil in all sorts of different ways. And then you've got the added element of what on earth all of these different microorganisms are doing. And not just the chemical side, air, worms and things digging through the soil. So when you're talking about your regenerative agriculture, they are measuring the number of microorganisms in the soil. They want to sequester carbon into the soil. humus, not hummus. You don't want some. I just had some hummus for tea. It was lovely.
There'd be a pizza if there was too much hummus in the soil.
The humus, the organic material, and actually we're doing that. Susie and Peter did do a podcast talking about minerality, and I did have that in mind, that I wanted to kind of try to one up them, because obviously they've got 2 masters of wine, and we're not.
And we have we have no masters of anything.
And Entangled Life, cool. I'm going to go and read that. That's great. Will the Pinots continue to develop?
You're going to do that on your flight to California, where you got exactly.
They'll definitely continue to develop.
So I think they will develop. You can hang on to these. They're perfect to drink now. They could last for another 5 years, another 10 years. They're not going to be much better. But interesting. I'm going to go off at a tangent here. While I go off at the tangent, the real question is, what was your favourite wine 3 or wine 4?
Yeah.
I was drinking a bottle of California Cab with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Ian Wareham, and it was a fantastic bottle of wine. I'm not going to name names, I'm not going to name brands, but it was a 2016 vintage. And he asked me the question, have we opened this too early? Should I be holding it on for longer? And it's about drinking wine as you like it. And I really think if you have a California Cab, don't drink it year 1, maybe, a couple of years on it. But the longer you leave it, the more tertiary flavours you're going to get. And therefore it's going to become more Bordeaux-y in style. So if you like those lots of tertiary dusty flavours, just buy a bloody Bordeaux. The point of having a New World California style wine is that fruit and that freshness and that juiciness, which starts to go away at age. So you've got to have that balance. It's nice to have a little bit of tobacco, a little bit of earthiness. And
I agree.
But you want to have this jammy fucking, I'm swearing now, rich fruit up front, because it was a good bottle of wine. Look at that.
So I think there's a tasting note that's really interesting here.
Don't age it then. It needs to be drunk within the next 2 weeks, Ian.
Wine 4, we've got a tasting note of iron. And I think when I tried this, I had one of these with my Christmas dinner. In fact, I had both. I had one of each with Christmas dinner. So we've evolved a bit since then. But iron was one of my top tasting notes from the volcanic one, I think. Assuming that is the one we're dealing with here. We're all confused on that one now. But I certainly felt a lot of iron on the volcanic one. And I don't know why. I can't tell you that. I don't think volcanic soil's particularly high in iron.
Just because I'm right. Yeah, someone agreed with me. There we go. Save that for a rainy day.
But fewer tasting notes on the wine 4. I'd agree. The 3 for me definitely had more complexity in. Isn't that crazy? Because there's the same kind of number of clones. We've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 versus 5 different clones.
Similar elevator. Well, it's close to identical as it gets.
It's just there's not much more complexity coming from anything that's gone in other than what's underneath the ground. So I think it would be really interesting to dig into what's underneath the ground. We need Martin from our friends in Argentina to dig a hole. Dona Paula, yeah, exactly. Buying several bottles and tasting over time is always a really fun experiment until you realise that you've left them too late. You've still got 6 in the garage. I did that with 2017 Rathfinney. That was a disaster.
I thought over time was one at 6 p.m, one at 7 p.m, one at 8 p.m. I thought that's how you tasted wine over time.
Lactone's more prominent in 3. That's interesting. That is very interesting. I love that. So how are we doing? I've still got a little bit left in my glass. Let's just pull up that picture again, just to look one more time at no, that's the wrong one. At the difference between there. Martin loves digging holes. You can see that this is a 3D map. It's a bit textured, and it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea about the lay of the land there and how you're going up into those slight hills on the right-hand side there. That is roughly north-facing, going sort of, well, you can see the hopefully you see the compass. It's quite nice and flat down there as well. So there is a slight difference in terrain, perhaps a little bit difference in drainage. And of course, the clay will hold on to the water a little bit more. Certainly than like the sedimentary silt. It will just go straight through that. So that is a difference as well. The impact, but it's still part of the terroir.
I'm just
Very
going to
cool.
say here, because I forget
Yeah.
to say it at the end, I only have 60 bottles of each of these, and I can't get any more because I bought everything he had. So,
Yeah, we literally bought it all because it's not every day you get to taste cool Pinot Noir that's that good for that price. So don't buy it all because I want some. Okay, right, let's get rid of that and move it
are
on
we moving on to 5 and
to
6?
5 and 6, I
See,
believe.
this is why we're never going to do things so close again, because I can't get
when
my
you're this tired.
I get my east side, west side, east side. West Side Story. So anyway, we are
The
going.
Pet Shop Boys said go west. I
Life,
managed to miss that one. Was
life was peaceful there.
was indeed.
But anyway, so we are heading to Argentina, and
Does anyone here know anything about Argentinian wine?
we're gonna
Oh, sorry.
come on, sunshine. So Argentina, and so with the first pairing, it was more about climate. Our second pairing was about soil, and this third pairing is mainly about terrain.
Yeah.
So our two wines, we've got one from Mendoza. So the first wine is from Patagonia, a little bit further south, and then our second wine number 6, is from the Uco Valley in Mendoza, which is the heart of Malbec making country in Argentina. This is where I'm always worried. Anything I say, I'm going to get schooled from someone in the chat.
I think I don't know any difference to you there, so that's all that's all good. And I think one of the big differences with Patagonia, obviously, is that as you move down south, you're getting away from those high points of the Andes. So the Patagonia region is much lower mountains, and then going all the way down to the sea. So while they have some forests, it's a bit more lush and green. It's a lot more lush and green, I think, than the Uco Valley. Although if there's anyone here who's been to the Uco Valley, then just let us know
Chip in.
about the forest side of it, which I haven't seen much kind of tree growth down around by the vineyards, but I haven't been there. So
I think when we mention where we are, so for wine 5, the Ojos del Sur, it's a fairly new region. Nequin is where it's made. And you think Patagonia, and when people say Patagonia, they think end of the earth, stood there looking at the glaciers, kind of stuff like that, yeah?
Yeah.
These wines are nowhere near that far south. You've got Mendoza, and then the next big region south of that is Nequin, which is where this wine is being made. These guys make Pinot Noir, they make Malbec, they make a Chardonnay. We did the Pinot Noir on a tasting a couple of years ago. But
thank you, Wine Folly. But yes, it obviously goes down a long way. But the wine region of Patagonia is you're going to be at the north end there.
Absolutely. You go too far south, you need enough sunshine hours, and you need to have enough warm to get anything ripe. And you go much further.
Otherwise, you're going to end up adding sugar and chalk to it.
Exactly. You might as well be in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, where was I going? I was going off it, but going a little, where they are coming up, they've got the hills. They've got enough of a diurnal shift that they can get the longer sunlight hours. He's going to bring the slide up, isn't he?
Yeah.
Look at this. And Patagonia, we've got they've got volcanic soil, but it's this malleopis soil, which is really, really fertile. Which you generally think for wine, people go, the grapes need to strive, the grapes need to work hard, the grapes need to do this. But where you're a little bit further south, with lower elevation, and it's a little bit cooler, and you're not up and you're not getting as many sunshine hours as you were where you're further up the Andes and nearer to the equator, you almost need the fertile soil to balance out what you're not getting. You need the grapes to be able to generate themselves and have enough food to, every little bit of sunshine needs to photosynthesize and not go, done. You've got to have a big canopy. You've got to get that to get your fruit ripe. So you need to have fertile soil if you're going to have that many leaves in the vineyard.
Yeah, and you start getting these deficiencies in the grapes themselves if they don't have enough of the micronutrients, there's a wonderful guide produced by WineGB where you can flick through and you can say, that little bit of weird yellow around the edge, that's this deficiency and all of that. But in general, the more kind of like the fertilizer, this food not food in the sort of sugar way, but all
By the
of
way,
the.
people are ordering the
That's
Pinot
very,
Noir
very smart of
live.
them. Well done, excellent.
Live.
Yeah, you don't want the grapevine to have too much, and I think we there are a lot of people. You can try to put stress on the vine in different ways. You go to South Africa, you might find that it's done by a disease in the vineyard, like for example with pinotage. That's too much stress.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want it to be too stressed. Water stress, if there's too little water, everything's going to go wrong. The grapes are going to shrivel up, the leaves are going to die. But if you have infinite amounts of water, it will go crazy. Likewise with sunshine, as you've said. Likewise with.
You've also got to be careful, going back to water, you've got to be careful because too much water, especially in your clay soil, can be dangerous because your vines will drown.
Yeah.
So there is
yeah, they'll rot
everything
the roots.
in moderation. And once again, if you've got like a schist or a granite soil, you can have it rain all day, every day. It doesn't matter because you just go done. But if you've got a clay soil,
it'll still grow in other ways, like in terms of mildew and stuff growing. But yeah, in terms of the growth of the grapes, you absolutely.
But this is the thing we talk about terroir, and it's not one thing or another. It's the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things that bounce off each other, and each turns up with their own problem. You turn around and go, wind's coming down through the Rhone Valley. It's great because it stops disease pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But also, if it's over the top, it rips all the grapes off the vines. So, you go to Santorini, it's all in bush vines because they've got to grow like that because otherwise the wind would destroy it. So there's so many things that...
I think the one pressure you don't... there's probably a few, but thinking about this as I speak, the one thing you really don't want is too little sunshine and too little warmth. That's the wrong kind of stress. Yeah. That's just...
The fact is, not enough temperature and not enough sunshine, you just don't get ripeness. Like anything else you can manage, but lack of stuff is a problem. You can do it a certain
amount. You can still go and start doing green harvest. Now, green harvest...
hydroponics.
They do quite a lot of green harvesting in Argentina, I think. Going through the vineyards, and it may well be because the sheer amount of sunshine you had the previous year, that beats down on the thing. Oh, I need to move the tasting notes on. So sorry. Oh, I'm on.
Are you? Oh, they're all right. He's so ahead of the game. Yeah, you are.
I actually remember turning it on.
Yeah, so cool. I just saw a big vanilla in the middle, which was in the last one. It's my glasses. It's no good for anyone. I can't see anything.
Yeah. Green harvest. Yeah. Cutting away some of the fruit. Plants are quite resilient things. If they put their energy though where they kind of want to, and there are certain key parts where it will put its energy into it. So if you don't have the other bits that take all of the energy away, these kind of sources where all of the energy goes to, these tend to be in the bits where all the cells are dividing and doing all sorts of cool stuff, like the very tips of the plant. So where at the highest point, you go and top the vine, you go and top it off there, it'll start putting out shoots later, and it'll put out more energy into the grapes. If you take away half of the grapes, it'll put more sugar, more energy into ripening the grapes it's got left. So if you're going to have a really challenging vintage in terms of the level of heat, go through the vineyard and drop a lot of the fruit, and you just drop it. So yeah, it's a very manual process. Unfortunately, people are literally going which of these bunches look the most ripe, the best, and it's a lot of work.
It's the same. It's the efficiency when you've only got a certain amount of something. It's all right. Well, I've got 1,000 liters of wine, so I could fill, and I wanted to fill 2,000 liter bottles. You can either go, well, I could fill all of them half, or just do 1,000 full.
That's a really good analogy.
And that's what it is.
That's a really nice analogy.
You've only got so many units of goodness to get into the grape. Mm-hmm. So if you've only got 1,000 units and you've got 2,000 grapes, get rid of half of them, and you'll get 1,000 good ones rather than 2,000 half ones.
Yeah, indeed. And there's no point in having loads and a massive yield of underripe grapes. Oh my gosh. So Daria's husband, they're tracking the amount of water they use in the vineyard. I think it's really, really interesting to hear. And fair play to your husband for climbing up mountains. It's not my favourite activity, but
Ivanhoe Beacon's about as big as I get.
Pretty good. Yeah. Let's have a look at these tasting notes. So it's very kind of like sort of primary flavours on the light red fruits, isn't it? But a bit of pepper, a bit of blackberry.
It's interesting for me. It's not a very Malbec-y
It's not a Malbec-y Malbec, is it? No.
It's not that big blue fruit.
No.
It's almost and I'm going to say Bordeaux-y, and then everyone's going Malbec's a Bordeaux
Malbec is a
grape.
Bordeaux
Yeah,
grape, actually.
exactly.
Yes, but it's not exactly the dominant one.
But
it
it feels it feels more old worldy. Do you know what I mean? It's that where Malbec's blended into a Bordeaux-esque kind of thing, which I think is quite cool.
Yeah, really interesting.
Should we dive on to the next one and do a bit of comparison?
That's an interesting thing. So it is a bit more old-worldy style, isn't it?
That's what I meant. That's what I was saying the whole time, basically. I just need people to summarize. I walk around and talk about it for like 40 minutes to go, oh, it's kind of like cot.
But stylistically, yes, on the fruit, it's right. But cot can be a bit of a different beast.
It could be a bit
if you're going to Terroir, it's a... crikey.
But you're seeing some cot made in Chile as well now, which has that kind of style. So maybe that Chilean Malbec cot kind of feel is more like that than what we think is a classic Mendoza style of Malbec.
Let's move those notes on. You're quite right.
But I think that's cool.
I guess.
I think that's cool. But you go. Not all Malbec has to be created the same. Not all Sauvignon Blanc has to be created the same. But I think sometimes when we do old world, we get so excited about going, 1 yard to the left and cross the fence and go, look, this is so different. And then we go to Argentina and go, Malbec, innit? You go to Australia, Shiraz, innit? Done. And to be able to taste and go, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Where you go, the region, vastly different. And I know you can have nuances. You can absolutely have nuances in the Uco Valley that, you go a bit further up the hill, you do this, it's different. But these are vastly different wines, which is going...
I haven't tried this one yet. Let's give it a go.
And just going Argentinian Malbec, you can't do that. You can't, in my humble opinion.
That is a very, very different beast. We have an interesting point here. So the old Cot Malbec clone is quite different. Apologies for anyone who's heard this bit in the past. The interesting story, I think, for me about the history of Malbec in Argentina is that all of these Malbec clones were from France. And they moved over to Argentina as they started to die out in France. And so these are some of the original French clones, that broader variety of clones of Malbec, whereas what was left was the Cahors. And I think, as well as this difference in the clones, you've got, I think, that Cahors style of wine. It was a bit like when you have a Chateau Moussard, you accept there's a kind of a certain faultiness to it inherently because it's still brilliant. Cahors was so punchy and ridiculously over the top with a little bit of, obviously it's not just Malbec and Cahors, is it, or Cot. There's a little bit of Tanat in there as well, isn't there? But it's really, really different kind of style, and I think traditionally a less scientific kind of winemaking. Whereas I think, again, this is the bit where tradition and history comes into it versus France. And,
So Callie's point there about Cab Franc, I was talking to a couple of Argentinian winemakers and exporters and stuff, and Cab Franc is now the thing that they drink locally.
I heard that as well.
Because Malbec has got such a international drive that they can get good money and they can export the Malbec and do it. And they're making fantastic Cabernet Franc that's very drinkable, and it's not got the export directive that Malbec has.
No.
Not dissimilar to you go Australia, they do Shiraz, and you go, well, what about doing some Drieve or something like that? No, Shiraz comes out. So, and that's the thing. It's we blanket things. We go, what does California make? And we go, hey, it's Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Yeah, that's what California makes, isn't it?
Well, absolutely.
But
it makes a couple of other things.
Exactly, well. But
yes.
But the same you say, Argentina is Malbec and Toronto. Yeah, that's what it makes.
Yeah.
But you look at these. New World's got this opportunity to make whatever it wants, and it's great. We had a New Zealand Tempranillo yesterday that was really cool. I've had a couple of Argentinian Tempranillos that are fantastic. You just see some cool stuff, and that's And I think this is the thing. Terroir is important, but also style is important. That it's not the same. Just because it comes from somewhere doesn't mean it's either good, bad, or it's going to be exactly like that. You never quite know until you open the bottle or the 100ml serving pouch to try it, so you don't have to buy a whole bottle before you taste it.
Nice plug.
Yeah,
they're already our customers. They know.
Yeah, I know. Just practicing.
Yeah, just practicing. Very good.
But I think it's important that you can have an idea what it might be like stylistically. But it can always be different.
I love single varietal Petit Verdot. It's just a wonderful thing. It's one of those things that probably feels like it shouldn't work because it's so intense, but you don't need much in there.
Can I go back to weird things?
Yeah,
we tasted at London Wine Fair a single varietal Lodi Cinsault, and it was epic. They also make an Assyrtiko.
Assyrtiko from Lodi. This was and it's quite a new wine producer, but quite an old grower.
Old grower, but decided to make their own wines last couple of years.
100-year-old, only rooted Zinfandel, bush vines, Cinsault, all sorts of things. Yeah,
but that has nothing to do with
doesn't have
the
anything
Malbec.
No, it doesn't have much to do with that. So the difference in altitude here we're talking about, I think that's important to talk. We're talking about between 245 meters above sea level for the Patagonian one,
and about 1100
for the Uco Valley, obviously. So not at the highest point of the Uco Valley, but
other things are quite similar. Between 30 and 50% in oak for about 3 to 5 months between the two of them.
So, the winemaker's not vastly different.
It's not vastly different than the
which is nice. And that was why we kind of picked. We wanted to get that kind of eliminate as many variables as possible.
We wanted to try and keep it as close.
Yeah.
But you can't have perfect because winemakers do what they want. They try to do this, they try to do that, and then sometimes are hidden, behind the scenes. You don't always. The tech sheet doesn't always match.
No, it doesn't always match. No, but again, vine age not dissimilar. And that's nice.
But look, this is much more Malbec-y notes.
Yeah, this is now into classic, and that I
blackberry red crown, blueberry jam, licorice.
The licorice on the nose is incredible. Like
so
when
much
you
aniseed.
I was like,
so much aniseed.
Boom!
There's some tarmac in there.
There's a little bit of blueberry jam people talking about, aren't they? Yeah. Tarmac. That's I like that. That's kind of I get that. That freshly laid tarmac kind of thing.
Good say. One of my favorite things about wine is you can put words out there that if you put it against like a menu, this food tastes like graphite, pencil shavings, tarmac, asphalt. People go, what? I would never eat that. But for wine, it's a positive. It's like, it's got a little hint of this Sauvignon Blanc's got a little hint of cat's pee in it. How's that a good thing? How's that positive?
Now, Jamie got invited while we were at the fair to do a very fun kind of tasting. Along that lines of putting messages into your mind and seeing how it screws with your ability to identify different things. And it's basically, I'm sure most of you all know the game show Call My Bluff. So you will get given a wine in a pouch. It's not through us. But
I'm packing and presenting.
We're packing it and we're presenting it, but Jamie is. But we might see if we can come to some arrangement to open it up to you guys as well.
I'll give it a shout. We'll get on our website.
We'll get on the website because it's got to be done because this sounds great fun. So who are the judges? Sorry,
to be confirmed.
The panel to be confirmed.
So there's me.
Okay, you and
there's
some cool people, very cool people.
But there's me and there's some wine professionals. But it's not till December. It's December 12th. Yeah. But there's going to be a selection wine set out, and it's basically a fact and two lies, and you've got to decide who's picked the wine. So
one of the people is telling you the right wine, and the other two are telling you something that's plausible, but not. So it could be here is a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, here is a Bacchus, or here is a... and do you know what really confused me the other day? I was judging at the Independent English Wine Awards, and we had this wine which everyone was convinced was so floral and hedgerowy that it had to be Bacchus. It absolutely had to be. It was Pinot Blanc. Again, someone has done this weird thing with Pinot Blanc, which normally doesn't show anything like that, and had made it do. So yeah, it's a good fun thing.
While everyone's finishing putting
Yeah.
things, should we do the end of show quiz?
Let's do that. Yeah.
To get people into the quiz. As always, get into the quiz. And the prize, as always, is send your friend a tasting for next month. Because next month we are doing Greece, because it is Greek wine month, and that's going to be very exciting.
If you are currently subscribed to our current calendar, we are going to be changing away from that because that costs us. They keep changing the amount of money they're charging us for what is just a Google Calendar. And so if you suddenly stop seeing the tastings in the calendar, just check back on the website and there'll be a new link to the calendar.
Loads
soon.
of people.
So people are joining.
Is anyone banned from winning this month, or is everyone back in?
I think everyone's back in.
Everyone's
back in the game.
Okay, we're going to give you 30 seconds. 20 seconds.
But you're going to give it someone new, though, if you do win again.
Yeah. If you've won it, don't give it to your mate who's already on the tasting. Okay. The whole point of this is we want to get new friends to. So I can tell my same old jokes and someone else finds it funny because you guys are all done with it now. So that would be really helpful.
Well, and likewise, if you do have a friend, tell a friend. Get people to come along and join us because it's a wonderful thing.
Because if I had a friend, I'd tell them.
Okay.
Anyway,
we've got some people in. So
let's go.
I haven't seen these questions, so I'm going to be guessing along with you. 3, 2, 1, go. Which of the following soil types have the smallest particles?
Well, geeky, isn't it?
Stones, sand, clay, or silt? An excellent question. I like that one. Very good.
You like that one. The question is, have I managed?
You didn't have boulders in there. Why is boulders not in there?
Just with my skills on the tasting notes, who knows if I've even got the quiz right today?
Who knows?
All right, people have voted sand.
Ooh.
It's interesting.
Let's flick through.
Clay.
It's clay.
Clay has 0.02
microns, I think. Yeah. I know.
So you're from smallest to largest. It would be stones are your biggest, then sand, then silt, then clay.
Boom.
Who's got that?
Ty and Andy.
Well
done.
If there's two on the same, that's only half points if there's two names, though. Okay.
Kimmeridgian soil is famously found in Burgundy, Jerez.
Sweet is not an answer. Don't click sweet.
Oregon, Moselle, or sweet. Yes, I see. Yes. Sweet.
Caroline. Bam, bam, bam.
Okay. And
do you know this one? They went for Oregon because they love Oregon, but Burgundy, Chablis is
Burgundy. Yeah, Kimmeridgian soil. It's this very sort of
limestone. But you also find it in Kent and Sussex. It's the same bit of land goes down under the channel and out in Burgundy, Champagne.
So that's your
Chablis.
spot for your very, very minerally Chablis kind of style wines. Oh, we haven't got much of an overlap. That's cool. Okay.
It's all about time.
Which of these are not related to terroir? Climate, grape, soil, or tradition? Now, bonus points if you didn't look in your book for doing this one.
Or you listened to any point.
Or you listened to any point we've done. That's going jolly good.
This has been a lot of fun. I've liked this one. I've liked the geekiness in the chat.
Yeah. Grape. Now, I see you could make a very good argument about tradition. I would argue tradition, but it's in our things, and that's what the other guys said. So yeah, so we're going to go for grape. But I mean, is grape not part of tradition? Like, the fact that this has always been grown here. You can't make.
Well, no, because it's not always been grown there. If someone plants a new vineyard in Ecuador, no,
but it does affect it in Burgundy.
Anyway, let's see who's winning.
Move on. Ty and Andy.
2 out of 3. It's like meatloaf.
But have you seen how close it is?
Oh, it's tied.
It's basically tied.
Oh, hello.
What is the minimum number of sunlight hours required during growing season for a viable grape wine growing region? I don't know that.
I thought you were a winemaker.
Is this? What do you mean sunlight? Is this? I don't know. I haven't heard it expressed like that before. There's all sorts of things like GDD, but 1200.
See,
Correct. Well, they know.
They know exactly.
They know. I mean, I would probably.
No one wanted.
Obviously, I'd pick that.
We're all in England. No one knows. We know 5,000 hours of sunshine doesn't exist.
But is England truly a viable grape? No, absolutely is. Having judged some fantastic wines at IEWA. Kevin,
2 seconds up, but then there's some quicker
Magda's
behind.
Close. Magda's close.
But behind
Julia's
is one
not far
question.
away.
And there's times.
When we talked to Bob Burton, the Australian winemaker of Burton, we asked him what makes the Coonawarra terroir quite so special. Is it the Terra Rosa, the red soils?
You're going to be quicker to get through.
There's no such thing as terroir. Is it the ocean breeze, or is it the way that the seagulls poop? That's not a very grown-up answer, Jamie.
No. But if anyone knows the interviews that I've done in the past, the correct answer is
the way the seagulls poop. He goes, who knows? Maybe it's the way the seagulls poop. I don't know if he's 100% accurate, but he did say that. We're just reporting what he said, not necessarily the truth.
Facts.
Yeah. Which winemaking country is Jamie heading to this week? Is it America or the United States thereof, Spain, Austria, or France? I don't know. It's not one that I'm heading to, is it?
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh. Are you going to another one in the next coming months?
I've got
a few, haven't you?
Got to go and see some people,
Okay.
Get some good wine for our good friends in the club.
Jolly good.
Everyone thinks I'm American, don't they?
We are going to America, but it's not this week.
That's next month.
That's next month.
And the answer is Austria. I'm heading to the Vinexposium in Vienna for a few days, and then down to Steiermark, which will hopefully lead to some phenomenal wines for our Austrian tasting.
And he's heading off to go stay at one of these thermal spa resorts, so he's going to have a bit of a cultural shock to the system when he goes to the sauna. That's for sure. Leaderboard, Magda in the lead. Congratulations there, Kevin. We've still got a few more questions though, haven't we? So let's keep going. Which of the following is a subappellation?
Skip that one. You can go. That's for,
no, you can. No, this is what we call revision question.
Anyone who listened last month.
The revision question. That's what this is. So if you were listening carefully last month.
Yes, I did that on purpose. That's what we should do every month.
We should have a revision question. By the way, I've recently had quite a few of the deeper red rosés.
So they didn't listen last month. It's all over the place. It's all over the place.
Corner. Metamorphic soils include which of the following? Volcanic, slate, sandstone, or limestone? Metamorphosis, the change of state.
It's like a caterpillar, isn't it?
It is indeed. Going into its little cocoon.
And on Sunday, he ate 3. He had 4 glasses of Pinot.
But he was still thirsty. Volcanic? It's slate.
Volcanic is igneous, and sandstone and limestone are both sedimentary.
And schist? Sorry. Okay. Why does the Wachau region of Austria make such great wines? Is it A, because Jamie went there a few years ago, B, the climate, C, the grape selection, just answer it, river, or because the soil is very gneiss? Excellent. Yep. You've got a cap that says something along those lines.
Don't say that now. Everyone's knows the answer.
I didn't say where it's from.
Everyone's got to know I love a pun.
The river does make a very important influence on it.
So does the climate, and so does the grape.
True.
But anyway, how has it all
ended up?
So Magda is our winner. Magda,
bravo.
Send us a friend who needs to have a tasting with us, or me, whichever one you prefer. Should we pop on and see what the wine of the night was?
Let's go for wine of the night.
And then we'll check back
Holy Snail, Kim Crawford. Have we got these right? Wine 3, wine 4, Oyo Stelsior, or Malbico?
Yeah, we do. Right, do we want to pop back to the chat? Because it was
Let's see the chat. Yes, it was. So sorry, yeah.
It was hard in last month. It was very difficult to write questions about soil and try and keep them interesting.
Delighted with 3. To be honest, do you know what? I once, the end of one of my terms at Plumpton, I came top of the quiz at the end of.
To be fair,
I was so happy.
I wrote the questions. I didn't get them all right on the way back through. So there we go.
Yeah, I came top of the quiz and I got 20%. And Tony Milanowski looked at me and he goes, "What have you guys been doing?" And so, well, we haven't had a lecturer for this term, so that's part of it. Lithuania, is that just a statement that we should look at Lithuania? So, Sophia, I haven't tried many Lithuanian wines, but
We can talk to Vitas.
yeah, we could. We did try, actually. Sorry, we've done that one. We did try a lot of the wines of Ukraine,
and they were good.
and that was good. There was the first time I tried it, I really wanted to support Ukraine. You know, I'm a huge supporter. But
where I was going on holiday, that was the thing. It was built into the question.
Okay.
There we go. That's all
Okay.
good.
So, yes, the wines that now are being imported from Ukraine are miles better. They were so good.
Should we pop the
So we're
prices
gonna
up
do.
quickly?
We're gonna have to
'Cause
do a
everyone's-
wines
I think-
of. Let's see what the results. Should we see what the results are? I'm gonna
Let's see
turn
the
it
results
off.
quickly.
Let's see. By a narrow. Well, okay. So it's Pinot versus Pinot.
And then Sauvignon versus Sauvignon. And so it was basically.
Oh my gosh!
So
yeah.
the Pinots were the favourite flight because they hit the top 2 slots. Then the
Yeah.
Sauvignon Blancs were the second 2 slots, and the Malbecs were the least popular one.
How
but-
interesting.
But they're balanced. Like there's not a winner from each category almost.
No,
It's-
they're so close. But East Bloc did narrowly beat out West Bloc to be the wine of the night.
Right.
Wine 3. I don't think that's a surprise to any of us,
pop the-
especially.
let's pop the prices up.
now we should probably put the
So-
prices up. You've definitely done these prices, Terroir. You have. Excellent. So we have. Let me turn that logo off.
I think like so. I've said there's some
I'm-
phenomenal value wines this month. I just think in a world where wine is becoming more premium, more expensive, people are jumping back into supermarkets. I think these wines showcase that you can drink some really, really cool wine without breaking the bank. It's not £7. It's not that.
Yeah,
we're not-
It's
We're
ludicrous
not. We're
value.
not suddenly 30, 40, 50 quid a
It's
bottle.
literally only a special deal. The guy, he came in, he offered us them first, and we just said,
How
we will
much have you
take
got? I'll take
everything
it.
you have because we love that so much, and that's just a silly price. So
Uruguayan Albarino. Who makes that? Gazon. We've got one. We've got one in the shop. It's really good.
nice. So very cool indeed. Is there a final question? There isn't a final question. That's all done. So we're all
No,
done with that.
I got rid of if you had a good night
Yeah,
because
we
you've
all know
always
you
had a
have.
good night, and if you didn't, you'll email me about it.
Yeah,
so it's
that's
okay.
true. That's true.
But next month we're doing Greece. We've got some other cool things coming up. I'm getting over to Austria. We're both getting over to the States, so hopefully there's going to be some American content coming. And
yeah,
if there's things you guys want to see, let us know. Give us a shout because we're always happy to.
I think the
do
other
what
thing
you
to
do.
say is that we are the primary reason we're going over to the States is that we want to be able to offer what we do in the United States as well, and we're
doing a
really
pitch. He's doing
starting
a
to.
pitch.
No, I mean we okay. If you've been following us on social media, you'll have spotted us tasting pouches quite regularly. That's because we're going back through all of the 150 different wines we packed up before Christmas on our new process to see how they've coped after 6 months at room temperature and comparing them to fresh bottles. And everything's working perfectly, which is a lot more we can say that for some of the competition that we've seen in our small packaging space. So if you are interested in helping us get out to the US and you happen to know any kind of angel investory people, get them to drop us a line because I think that it's going to be very, very cool trip. And we've got some amazing partners. We also have an amazing partnership that we're going to be launching very soon.
Not allowed to talk about that.
We're not allowed to talk
However
about it
much
yet.
you want to.
I certainly can't mention that, but it's really exciting. So we've got some incredible things, and we hope that we hope you're still loving what we're doing. We're still loving spending time with you and drinking cool wines.
Yeah.
So
Buy a decent amount of Pinot, but not too much. I'd like
Not too much. We
I'd
need
like
to
to see
keep
about
some.
50 of them gone, so me and Alex can have a case each, and that'd be great. But anyway,
Give that a try.
and I like the feedback from Magda. We can do more comparisons. We can do more challenge.
let's
We can
do
do
that,
kind of
yeah.
pitting each other against each other.
We haven't done it
That's
for a while,
fine.
so,
So-
let's get on the case. And we'll do some actual genuine challenges.
I like
Cool.
that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Brilliant.
Have a wonderful evening.
Good night all, and we'll see you next time.
That's us.
Cheers. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.